So, hello and welcome to Lily's Show and Tell series. Before we begin, there is a couple of housekeeping items that I'll go over. In this session will be recorded and the recording will be sent out by the end of the week. And then two, feel free to put any questions in the chat and I'll keep an eye out and note them down. Or also we have the Jambo, which you can put your questions there. And then three, finally, if you want to learn more about Lily or present your own show and tell, I will write April's and my email address in the chat so you can email us if you have any questions or concerns, or if you would like to present. And now to our speakers, Natalie Marquez from University of California, Irvine, and April Shepard from Arkansas State University.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today for Lily's Show and Tell. We are starting out the new year with a great topic, all about the money and overview of predatory publishing. My name is Natalie Marquez, and I'm presenting today with the knowledgeable and wonderful April Shepard. All right. So I'm just going to do a quick overview of our outline for today. April will give a short introduction, then offer some definitions and history about the subject of predatory publishing. I'm going to talk to you about current research and new scams. Then it will be back over to April for some tips to identify predatory journals with some great examples. And lastly, I will talk about what we can do and share out some valuable resources that will include lists of predatory journals and publishers, plus other items. My colleague April is also putting a link into the chat for our Jamboard, and so our moderator can put questions into that space, but please feel free to add your questions to the Jamboard and we will address them at the end of our presentation. Also, if at any time during this presentation you guys would like to share out any resources to include in the handbook or the handout, please feel free to add it to the Jamboard. All right, take it away, April.
Great. Thank you. Yes, at first we're just going to talk a little bit about what is predatory publishing and the history of it. How did we get to this major problem that we're having? So predatory publishing is a type of open access. So we're just going to start there with open access. Open access is a publishing practice that provides content freely available online without any barriers. That means if you have access to the internet, you have access to the content. And there are a variety of format models. For example, the Diamond doesn't charge the authors anything. The Gold Standard format, and there's a lot of other different formats that may charge authors article processing charges. So I know there's a lot of people who think if they see a charge on an open access journal, that makes it predatory. No, not really. There's a lot of legitimate, very academic, very scholarly, peer review open access that does have those charges. The predatory publishing is a deceptive practice that has always that charge, but there's no quality control. So no peer review, no real editorial board. No one's really looking at these articles. The sole goal for these is to make money. They don't care about the content. They don't care about the authors. They don't care about us as researchers. So a little side-by-side comparison here. So they're both freely available online. Predatory will always charge. Open access, it's hit or miss. And that's kind of where any similarities begin. Open access that's legitimate will have quality control, most likely that peer review process, easy to read under policies, clear guidelines, clear information for authors, clear copyright, digitization, all those type of things. Whereas predatory, it's going to have little or no quality control. You'll see some examples in a few about that. Hidden, incomplete information, deceptive information, especially for the authors. No clear peer review process. They're going to promise quick publication. That's your big warning sign. Anytime you see anything that says you can get published fast, it's not going to be legit. Missing copyright policies, poor policies, deceptive indexing or impact source. They're going to say that they're way more important than they are. They're going to say that they're indexed in places that they're indexed. There's also a lot of fake indexing that goes out there that are not legitimate. So you'll see like the index corpus score. That's not actually a legitimate score. And they're very, very aggressive with soliciting people to publish in their journals. Just a quick history. Again, just how did we get here? This idea of open information is pretty old, but I'm going to just go back to 1942 with sociologist Robert King Merton. And he had this theory of open pot of knowledge. And he said that scholars and academics should kind of get over this notion of intellectual rights and put all of our knowledge in a pot to share with each other. So this notion of information should be shared. In the 60s is when we start seeing the start of the internet, so from 1960s to 1990s. And it's not the internet that we think of today. So that didn't happen in 95, but there was still the internet and information was still being shared from computer to computer. And so in 1971, we had the founding of Project Gutenberg, where they did scan in the Declaration of Independence, made a digital copy of it, and they were sharing that with other computers. So again, not the internet that we think of, but even in 71, back even in the 60s, there were scientists that were digitizing products and science things and sharing them to each other and creating a digital archive, so that we didn't call it then back then. In 1987 to 1990 is when we start seeing this thing called free access journals. This is what we would consider open access. We just didn't have the terminology there. Again, not quite the same because not everyone had internet in their homes, but you could still have access to these journals through file transfers or other ways you could get them. 1995, the internet became commercialized. That's when we all got dial-up. If you're old like me, you remember that horrible sound every morning when you logged in. And then 2001 is when we had the Creative Commons. So this is that notion of kind of going back to Meriden, our open palette of knowledge of getting up your copyright policy to some degree. You can do it completely, or there's some rules you can put in place, and to share that information so anyone can access it or reuse it. 2022 is when we first get the coining of open access and also open educational resources. They're not exactly the same, but there's a lot of similarity between them, and two different groups came up with this terminology. So in 2008 is when we first started getting the complaints in literature about there being predatory publishing and about scam publishing. But as the researchers went back and started looking at these very first predatory journals, we saw they started in 2001. So as soon as Creative Commons came out, we were getting predatory publishing. And then 2010 is when we get the infamous Beall's List with librarian Jeffrey Beall. So it's not a new problem, but the problem has gotten really out of hand. So in September 2021, there was an estimated 15,059 predatory journals. Again, that's estimate. And we estimate in the year 2021, there were 787,000 articles published in these journals. Huge, huge amount of content. And because they always charge a processing fee, we estimate there was probably about $393 million that authors spent to be published in these predatory journals. So who and why? So the main reason that predatory journals exist, at least in my opinion, is academics face this publish or perish model. So if you want to get your job, you graduate school, graduate grad school, you got to build your resume. One of the great ways to build your resume is to publish. Once you get your job, you want to get tenure, you want to go through the promotion. In order to do that, you have to have professional activity. One of the professional activities is publishing. Publishing has a lot of weight to in certain fields. So there's a lot of pressure. Even in an institution like mine, librarians do not have tenure. So I don't necessarily have to do it, but my raise is directly tied into how much professional activity I do. So every time I publish, I'm raising the potential of a raise I'm going to get the following year. So you can see this push and this drive to publish and be as active as possible. So that's why fast publishing is appealing. If you've ever been through the peer review process, it's months. I did it one time and it took me 3 months just to get my first rejection, just to hear back after I submit. It's a very long process. Predatory publishing likes to focus on young researchers with insufficient research proficiency. So they just kind of don't know better. You're excited, you don't have a lot of experience, you want to get that job, you want to get that promotion. You could see again that drive, maybe people aren't being as careful as possible. Several predatory publishers also will focus on developmental countries. They don't have as many resources, maybe they don't have as many librarians able to help them find if something's predatory. There's different things going on. So a lot of social economic factors. And the other thing is the Diamond standards is free for open access, but Gold standards does charge. And there are legitimate open access publishers that will charge up to $5,000 for authors. So if you're from a developmental country, you probably cannot afford $5,000. But a predatory journal may charge you only $100. So you could see that incentive, that push for people in lower backgrounds to publish there. In some countries, publishing may be incentivized. So there are certain countries where every time a scholar or an academic publishes, they get a financial allowance. And then you'll see later, predatory publishing can be really, really labor intensive. There's a lot to go through. So I do have some examples. Natalie, you're gonna have to, yeah, I lost control. Thank you. So why does this matter? First, predatory publishing takes advantage of authors, primarily those at the beginning of their careers and already marginalized. So the people who need the most help are the ones who are being scammed the most. Second, the lack of peer review hurts everyone. Authors and researchers are not getting that constructive criticism to make themselves better writers, to make themselves better academics. And then the researchers who are using it for their own research, they're getting unreliable information. The information may be really great. There may be the most amazing article ever published, but you don't know that because there's no quality control. There's a lot of really bad stuff that also gets published, including things that could be dangerous. There's some very sad things that get published in like the medical field that could be dangerous if someone uses it. So we got 3 examples of things that have been published. These were 3 articles that were purposely bad to see if publishing companies would publish them. All 3 of them got published. 2 of them got published in multiple places. Okay, next one. So this is one that I make my students actually evaluate in my class. This is what's the deal with birds. And if you can't read the abstract here, many people wonder what's the deal with birds. Birds are pretty weird. I mean, they have feathers, WTF. As you get into the introduction, birds are strange. Some people are like, whoa, they're flying around and stuff. What's the deal with that? So hopefully you figured out very quickly this is not academic language. If you look at that box there at the top, March 25th is when it received. April 1st is when it was published. So very, very, very quick turnaround. Obviously, no one looked at this one. Next one. All right, this is another one that was published in multiple places. This is an article of mitochondria. So it looks pretty legit. It has your abstract, your introduction, it has charts, all these things that look very scientific. But as you get into the actual meat of the article itself, so the second word in the introduction, in case you can't read that, is midichlorian. And if you're not a nerd like I am, and you don't know what midichlorians are, as you read this journal, this article is going to become more and more obvious. So by the time we get to page 3, we have this inside the article itself. Have you ever heard the tragedy of Dark Plagueis the Wise? I thought not. It is not a story the Jedi would tell you. So midichlorians are what gives Jedis their powers. And this paper is full of Star Wars references. The whole thing has the word midichlorian in it. And the last one is a little on the inappropriate side. I did edit this for you. Oh, and it did not come off. What happened there? Oh, well, so apparently it's not edited. But I just wanted to show like how much the lack of quality control here. This actually got published, so get me off your bleeping mailing list. It also has probably the greatest flowchart in the existence of all flowcharts. Thank you. Back to you, Natalie.
Thank you, April. All right, so we're going to look at current research, and I'm going to start with hijacked journals. Now, April just gave you a taste of some in the examples of what we've seen. And these are not necessarily a new thing, of course, but this scam is more prevalent, especially right now with the virtual world. Clarivat has a great blog post on their academia and government. Oops. I think I kind of mixed up the order. So sorry. Okay. Pretend you didn't see that. So Clarivet has a great blog post on their academia and government blog that nicely defines this phenomenon. Hijacked journals are duplicate or fake websites of legitimate ones utilizing the title, ISSN, and other information of the reputable journal. They are often created by a malicious third party for the purpose of fraudulently offering academians the opportunity to rapidly publish their research online for a fee. They may take the name of a known journal in a specific discipline, tweak the name just enough to fool researchers, authors to submit their work to be published through them. Often these groups do not have a website. They publish their fake journals in print only and collect hefty fees to publish. Sometimes authors and researchers are often asked to sign over their copyright to the work as part of the submission process against the spirit of open access. And because of this, they feel unable to withdraw the paper and send it elsewhere. This is not right. So we're going to go back to principles of, so now my colleague is going to put in the chat an important website titled Principles of Transparency and Best Practice in Scholarly Publishing. This group is made up the Committee of Publication Ethics, COPE, the Directory of Open Access Journals, DOAJ, and the Open Access Scholarly Publishing Association, ASPA, and the World Association of Medical Editors, WAME. That's a lot of groups collaborating together. They are scholarly organizations, all are scholarly organizations that have agreed to collaborate to identify principles of transparency and best practices for scholarly publications. They began their work in 2013, and the website shared is the fourth version of a work in progress, which was published September 15, 2022. They've done amazing work in this collaboration. And I really recommend that you look at versions 1 through 3, and that way you can appreciate the process of creating version 4. Highlights of this group work: these agree that all practices should apply to all published content, including special issues and conference proceedings. This is a new thing. Conference proceedings weren't included until version 3. So they further saying that if any questions arise, the editor should use their best judgment. That means you can always question, the editor should always be questioning, all that kind of stuff. The need for questioning is really prevalent. So what the website should be licensed, as opposed to websites, they should be licensed and have proper security measures that protect users from viruses and malware. We don't want to have to be able to submit our awesome work and then get a virus. That's not fun. The website should not contain information that might mislead readers or authors, and should not copy another journal publisher site design or logo, which we already talked about with hijacked journals. The journal should have a plan for electronic backup, and long-term digital preservation of the journal content in the event that the journal and or publisher stops operating, and it should be clearly indicated on the website. So lots of information sharing. If you see a website that they're hiding things, it's not very readily available, the information that you're looking for, like peer review and such, it may not be a reputable journal or website. Again, I would highly recommend that you read more on their work and decisions, and of course, pass this info along. All right, so now we're going to hit up predatory conferences, new stuff, especially in this virtual world. Such conferences aim to earn money from those willing to pay for conference fees and the costs associated with open access publishing. We're going to look at in-person and we're going to look at virtual. Predatory conferences are nothing more than moderately well-organized events that promise researchers recognition after they pay a hefty fee. These conferences are especially good at luring in early career researchers, as April said, people who are naive, who don't know the processes yet. So in person, they invite researchers, hit them with large fees or accommodation bookings. I've seen that some conferences ask you to book within their system, and then they steal your money, and then you don't get to go to the conference. They may give the researcher a frivolous award for participation. And I'm going to give you an example that April shared with me, actually, for an in-person conference. If you guys can see it, this is a wonderful, beautiful conference. It's beautiful Predatory conference website. Again, April shared it with me and pointed out the deceptive details. She did a Google image search and found that some of these things were just images of Dubai. So we see that this is an Enchanting Dubai. You can visit Enchanting Dubai. One day is priced at $325. And what a bargain if you want to attend all the 4 days conference of the conference. That's $425. or $475. That's such a deal. Another way is this is learning and unexpected attendees is the vacation type location. You wanted to vacation in Dubai, right? We all want a vacation, and what more is to expect a wonderful place to visit and to work in. So as with virtual, this is the newest trend. Since more people are more inclined to attend virtual conference these days, they ask for registration fees upfront and then ghost registrants. Website shuts down and conference is redesigned and sent out to potential virtual attendees and speakers for another date. So again, luring in more people. All right, April's going to continue with, with identifying and spotting the scams with examples.
I do have several emails. I get these on a semi-regular basis. So hopefully I can drive. I can drive again. So why is it so hard to identify predatory journals and to catch predatory journals? So one of it is, this is a constantly growing field with the conferences and the journals. Every week, sometimes daily, a new journal is coming out. And it makes it almost impossible for people who do track these things to keep up with. And also when a predatory journal or a publisher or even a conference is outed, they just make changes to address whatever criticism. They're like, oh no, that wasn't really, that was a misunderstanding, and they fix it. But really they don't. If it's really bad, I have also seen them completely rebrand. They change their name, they go to a different website, but they don't really change anything else. They just take the articles, throw a new name of a journal on them, and just rehash them. Also, some of these companies can be really aggressive by going after their critics. So I've seen that happen before too. And these are all your warning signs. So unclear focus has unrelated subjects tied into it, spelling errors, grammar errors, low quality or stolen images or logos. The website's going to target authors, not readers. Questionable indexing. The same article may appear multiple times across multiple journals. Authors are published several times in the same journal. Editor or the contact person is the same for every journal. Generic greetings, no clear copyright retraction, digital preservation policies. It may be international, but not really. It may be American, but not really. The editorial members may be from outside the field. They may not claim the journal. That's a big red flag. You know, again, when we know that publishing and being a reviewer is going to be good for your resume, if someone's not claiming it, that's a pretty red flag there. It may use generic email addresses like Google or Yahoo, Gmail, things like that, instead of actual official company website. It maybe have wrong physical information, contact information, missing contact information, questionable payment methods, and then again, that the giant neon sign is that quick publication promise. So here's a real email that I've got. So this is from the American Journal of Information Science and Technology, and it looks pretty legit. So you can see if you don't have a lot of experience, where you may get really excited. And even me, I've been a librarian for 18 years now. When I saw this, my first thought was, oh, they want me. And it quickly died down because as I got to looking at this, I noticed all these problems really quickly. But even in my experience, for a split second, they had me. So we're going to evaluate this piece by piece. First of all, the email address I received the email from did not match the URL of the website. So this came from ajcem.net. The website of the journal is ajist.org. So that weird disconnect. And AJCEM stands for the American Journal of Clinical and Experimental Medicine. So obviously is not matching information science and technology. So that's that other subject areas coming into play. Supposedly this email was from Isabella, but if you look at the name of the email, it was from Papers. So again, those disconnects. Right up at the top, it promises fast publication, 40 days. That's not going to happen. It's not really addressed to me. It says, Dear Bailey Shepherd Singer, I am not three people. I may do the work of three people, but I am just one person. So what this tells me is, so Jeff, Ian, and I, we did co-publish an article that did appear in a conference proceeding. So I think they're just pulling our name out and not even bothering to look at it when they copy and paste it into these emails. Has a lot of really odd wording in it. Haven't been deeply attracted by your article. We have been devoted ourselves to PDF format launched by the editorial board. It's not wrong, but it's off. It's almost comes across like maybe it was ran through a Google Translate. Outside of the name of the journal, everything else in this email is really generic. It could be for any journal in any field. So it's a peer-reviewed international academic journal providing a sound platform for all. Not for librarians, not for information specialists, for all. I can quickly improve the prestige in my areas. Again, not in library science, not in information science, in my areas. And researchers from all around the world will accomplish more in the process of scholarly research. That's kind of worded weird, and it's weirdly generic again. Because again, they just like to rehash the stuff over and over. If you dig deeper, which I do because I am a crazy person, there are other signs as you look deeper and deeper into this. So for this journal, I am constantly being contacted by them. So you can see here, I got April, May, June, July, August, September. I probably get an email a month from this company. And I don't know if you could see in the first column in the top graphic, J editor, J article, journal AJSS, journal member. They all say a different name, but it's the same journal. And every email comes from a different person, supposedly, but it's all from the same address. So there's all these weird disconnects that are going on. But even though I know looking at the email that it's predatory, I still want to go to the website just to be sure, because I love tearing apart predatory websites. I'm not going to have quite as many screenshots on this part of the presentation because I want to be mindful of the people whose names are on this webpage. So right here at the front page, we do have latest articles. There is the possibility that people who publish don't know that this is predatory, and I don't want to shame them or out them in any way. There's also times when a predatory publisher will take someone's work and republish it, or someone may publish a work, realize it's predatory, and try to take back the work, and it gets published anyway. So that happens quite a bit. And with the editorial board and the reviewers, it's very common that they will list people on those pages that don't know that they're listed. They're not actually even asked. I know one faculty member on my campus who's been trying for 5 years to get his name off a editorial board for a predatory journal, and he's had no luck with this process. But we're going to talk about this. The first point while I'm here is this website is aimed at the authors, not the readers. So we do have on the left-hand side, the latest articles. Up top, there's a section for archive. Every single thing else on this entire website is for authors or trying to get people to be a reviewer or editorial board. So I estimate about 86% of the website is actually for authors or solicitation. The website contains over 40 links or submit buttons that I found. So it's just, again, that's the real purpose. It's not the scholarship. It's getting people in and getting people to pay. It has a lot of odd and generic wording. Again, it could be used for anything. So creates a unique medium for the publications of new developments. If a special issue is organized successfully, it could be a unique source. So again, it's kind of word salad. I mean, they're saying something, but not specific to information science or libraries or technology. It could be anything. This one sentence at the bottom, next year paper will be considered by the editor, and if it passes to pre-review, it'll be sent for peer review by experts in your field. And again, that experts in your field, that really generic thing. And I did a Google search for this as a phrase search, kept all the punctuation in exactly as it is. This entire sentence, 466 Google results for this exact phrasing. 19 of the first 20 results were for the same publishing company. And the 20th result was also a predatory journal. So you can see how they're just rehashing just generic stuff. It has unclear article processing charges. It's really hard to find the information on how the charging works. It's not honestly clear how you do it, but they do have a discount for low-income people or people from developmental countries. It's like one sentence that pretty much says, after you submit the article, after it's accepted, and after you contact the editor, they may give you a waiver. So there's this, again, not being really clear. There appears to be no secure payment method through the website. The authors get their article accepted. They are then contacted directly to make the payment. They're also expected to pay all the fees, so the PayPal fees and the wire transfer fees on behalf of the journal. And if you're not familiar with wire transfer, that means they're essentially going to have your bank information. And after 30 minutes of a wire transfer, you cannot dispute that charge. It's over. There are some places on the publisher website that says they use Western Union. It's inconsistent. Some places it says it does, some places it doesn't. So that inconsistency, and then Western Union is always a red flag. There's no contact information for the editorial board. There's no contact information for the editor-in-chief because there is no editor-in-chief, or the journal itself. Any information that's listed is actually for the publishing company overall. And as you dig into that, the physical address is supposedly in New York. The area code for the phone is in Virginia, and the bank address and the payment information is for California. And this is in 3 different pages that I have to go and find this information. I actually had to find the payment information from the publisher website on a tertiary page that was very hidden. So it took me a lot of time to find that. As I go through the editorial boards, again, I left their names off on purpose. A lot of them are not from information science, information technology. So we have educational, counseling, psychology, business and trade statistics, geography, public administration. You know, how are they going to peer review what I write if they're not in my discipline? It says it's an American journal in the name. In one place it says this is international, but it's an American journal. But only 9% of the board listed and 14% of the reviewers are actually from the United States. 69% are from Asia, 39% are from India. It has very minimal information on peer review. So that one sentence that I read that I told you I put in Google, that's the only sentence on the peer review process. Once accepted, we would send it for peer review. That's the only information they have. Compare this to the Journal of Academic Librarianship. They have their peer review section is 4 paragraphs long with 183 words, and it contains links to outside resources and additional resources to explain what is peer review. There's a video on what is peer review, tons of information there. Number 10, the authors are published multiple times in the same issue. So back in October, we had the same author published 3 times in a row back to back. So obviously there's no quality control happening here. And then again, because I am a librarian, I'm going to dig deeper. So I love using Wayback Machine and going to looking at old editions of this website. So the indexing page was coming soon. It was coming soon for several years, and eventually they just removed it. There is no indexing information at all anymore. They just took that page off. This is probably my favorite typo in all supposedly academic journals. You can log in or register. That was prominently displayed at the top of every page. I also went and carbon dated the website. I wanted to see when did this website, when was it developed? So I went to the carbon date page and I put in the URL, and they estimate August 2018. But if you go to the archives, it says that they've been publishing since 2017. And so there are 3 issues that were supposedly published before this website was created. And I know that one source, the carbon date site, may not be correct. So I went to Wayback Machine. Could I find an older version of this page? I couldn't. I went to Google, did all the backwards Google searching I could. I could not find any copies of this page before August 2018. So there's another disconnect there. And then the reviewers, you know, quickly going through the reviewers, although I already know it's predatory by far. Do they claim the journal on the vitae? Do they speak English? Do they publish in English? That you see that a lot with predatory journals. You'll have people who seem like they're doing their academic research in other languages. And if it's an English language journal, how can they adequately peer review? Does the information listed on the website match their actual information? It's not uncommon to see someone's name, even their photo, wrong institution, or maybe the right institution, but they'll change the subject area. So you see that. And then can you just find them? So this is one of the editors here. I did a Google search for their name. I only got 3 results for them. And 2 of the results were for this predatory journal. So does this person exist? I don't know. And then Cabela's, if you have access, Cabela's is a database that has a list of verified journals and a list of predatory journals. And for the verified, they will give you the metric scores for the journals. And for the predatory, they will give you the violations here. So this one, Cabela's says 7 violations. I think it's way more than that from what we looked at. But not everyone I know will have access to Cabela's because it is a subscription database. And then finally, just to try and be quick, go to the publisher's website. So this publisher is Science PG. Does not list any owners, CEOs, staff. There's not a name associated with that. When I did a deep Google search, I found one name in one place. I'm not really for sure if that's the right name, because when I tried to look that person up, I could not find any affiliation with that person with this company outside of that one resource. So that weird disconnect that's happening there. This publisher says they publish over 430 journals in practically every field. If you could dream of a field, that they probably have a journal in it. And you cannot be an expert in everything. And we know there's very large publishers like Elsevier. But Elsevier is not going to have a journal in every single field that exists. It has its wheelhouse. The information on the publishing website is pretty much only for authors. There's not really much for researchers, almost nothing for libraries. There's nothing to encourage libraries to host this or link to it. It's just information about publishing. And every single page says fast publication. It's on every page. There's minimal about us information, historical information. They say they've been around 10 years. They may be around 10 years, I don't know, but I can't really find any information. When I look this company up on Google or Wikipedia, the only thing I really find is negative information about them being predatory. So there's no historical information that seems to exist. There's inconsistent contact information, inconsistent email address, especially domains. So one email may be from this domain, another email from this domain, but you're one company. So that doesn't make sense to that disconnect. And then there's little information to prove that the company is where they're actually located. So they say that they're in one of the Rockefeller buildings in New York City and the 10th and 11th floors. So that should be a major company. But if you go to the Rockefeller Center's website of major businesses or the directory of businesses that are in the Rockefeller Centers, they're not listed. And then even if you go into a street view and try to find a sign, an advertisement, anything, it's not there. So far as I can tell, they don't really exist in that office. And back to Natalie to finish this up.
Thank you, April. All right, so now we're going to talk about what we can do. We need to be aware. We need to familiarize ourselves with reputable lists of journals and websites. We teach students, patrons to be good information evaluators. We must follow our own advice. I'm personally suggesting to choose 2 methods to determine if you are being scammed or not. It takes time, but it is worth it in the long run. So we're going to start with, let me get to this page. We're going to start with Beal's list of potential predatory journals and publishers. And I think April's going to put that link inside the chat for everybody to take a look. This is based on the author's original 2012 article, Predatory Publishers Are Corrupting Open Access. This list was last updated in 2021 and provides additional information about regularly used open access repositories such as DOAJ. But be aware that some of the links on the right are broken. A good link, as I was checking all the links, a good link to click on is the directory of open access journals, journals added and removed. DOAJ actually maintains a Google Sheet with a list of journals added based on the new application form, removed, mostly due to inactivity, and rejected, but it is continuously updated Google Sheet. And again, it's has added and removed from DOAJ. In most instances, it states the reason why the journal was removed. Many times it is because the journal is not adhering to best practices derived from principles of transparency and best practice in scholarly publishing, what we talked about earlier. Other times it's because the website does not work or the journal ceased publishing. Again, this list was last updated on January 10th, 2023, so this list is always up to date. And then you can also do a journal search through DOAJ, actually through DOAJ, and they have an extensive list of actual journals that are in publication right now, reputable journals. Clarivet has a master journal list, and that's pretty extensive. And of course, April has already mentioned Cabell's list, which is a subscription-based, but the website has sections for a white list showcasing over 11,000 reputable journals in many disciplines, and a black list that contains not an exhaustive list of known predatory journals and publishers. I really like their statement that they aim to shine a light on the deceptive practices that threaten to undermine quality research. I am in the process of asking for a subscription so we as librarians at my institution can be better informed and share out to our many patrons. Remember, there is no list to rule them all. There's many ways to do this. Again, checking two sources is best, as we tell our students. And then also another reminder is do not respond to an email from a potential predator. It is a waste of time on your part and would be just better to delete all predatory or fake emails. That's a little side note. Going on to the slide, we have a QR code if you guys would like to scan. And it's a QR code to a wonderful handout that we've created. And it features April's awesome guide from Arkansas State. So, and then there's also the link to the principles of transparency and best practice in scholarly publishing, a list of predatory journal and publishers, predatory conference list, but that's actually hard to get right now. So I'm still in the process of getting that information. There's not an actual like confirmed list. So right now, so I'm thinking of like developing one, but we'll see what happens. And then under the section under predatory journal and publisher list, there's actually an advice section. Under the predatory journal publisher list, there's a great digital commons a journal printout that's actually tells you how to shows you how to look for journal setups and stuff like that, and see it's when you click on it, you can actually test it and see what's a reputable journal. Under the predatory conference list, the advice, it has ThinkAttend, a link from thinkattend.org, and that actually shows you some, gives you some tips on how to determine if the conference is a reputable conference or if it's a predatory one. These wonderful ladies, I believe, let me see what that has it. They developed a conference evaluation tool, and it is, I wanted to make sure that I got them. Oh yeah. This is a conference checker. It's a PDF form. This was developed by Emmy Lopez and Christine Gaspard in 2018. It's a wonderful resource for checking if the conference is a scam. And it gives you a nice checklist for you to just say yes, no, very direct questions. And then, determining if this is a scam or not. And then of course, take a look at April's guide. So below there's also some tips for determining if a journal or if an email is a scam and trying to get you to submit something to a predatory publisher or journal. So it's not exhaustive, and we would love your feedback. So this is our references. Thank you so much. Any questions?
All right, thank you guys for that presentation. It was amazing. So there is some questions that I got from Zoom and the Jamboard, so I'll be asking those right now. So the first question I have is peer reviews only in English, or could it be done in other languages?
I think peer review, this is my personal opinion, is as long as someone has a strong grasp of the language that it's being written. So peer review can happen in any language. And I would imagine there are German peer review articles for people who speak German, review articles written in German. In fact, I know there's this huge area of scholarship that comes out of Europe. But it's, do the reviewers, are they fluent in the language that they're reviewing? And that's kind of where to check, because sometimes you'll see someone who, as when you look at them up, don't really appear to write in the language that they're supposedly reviewing, or maybe if they do, it's not to that scholarly level. So that's what we were referring to.
Okay, and then another question is, I think you had answered it, but I'll ask it anyways. It's, will the slides be shared after?
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
can share the slides. We'll share the recording, the slides, and the link to the handout. So
Yes, I'll fix the QR code, but I've already also put the handout, the link to the handout inside the chat.
Okay, perfect. And then another question is, have you ever come across a predatory journal that was listed on Jane?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Have you ever came across a predatory journal that was listed on Jane? I believe it's JANE.
I'm not sure what that is. Forgive me.
I'm sorry, I'm not that familiar with that either.
Okay, I'll move on to the next question is, can you put the intended URL for that QR code here in the Jamboard?
Okay, I can do that. Yes, that's a great idea.
All right, and
If the
then,
person wants to like expand, if they want to discuss or talk about what is Jane.
yeah, I'm not able to see the person, but if they can go and chat, that would be great. And then the last question that I have on here is it worth the time to let database vendors know when they index predatory journals?
Yes, yes. I'm finding more and more so that they love to have information given to them, and they'll send you an email right back. So
Okay, and it looks like they have put in chat what Jane is.
okay.
Yeah, so I got sidetracked. I'm like, ooh, new resource. We can add this to the handout too.
Yes, that would be awesome. Thank
Awesome.
you. Thank you, Caroline.
But I will say that, not directly related to this because I'm not super familiar with Jane, but I have seen things that I would consider predatory on whitelists. And sometimes you may come across a journal that is whitelisted someplace and blacklisted someplace else. Or maybe they were whitelisted and they get taken off and they make a correction and they go back. So some journals kind of flutter between the lists. And that whole one list to rule them all, or no list to rule them all, is we don't always agree what makes something predatory. So there's that issue too. So you do see things that may be predatory, may not be caught.
And it looks like, I think, oh, there's one more question is, have you seen journals you consider predatory on PubMed?
Yes. Yes, and it was very helpful to be able to send that information to Clairvat.
And I think it's, when you get some place like PubMed, it's just the volume. There's so much that's getting published. There's so much that's getting published on the database that I think things slip through, because some of these publishers are very slick. And, they change things just so close to something legit that sometimes they slide through and they don't get caught until someone like us says, hey, no, this is predatory, and we report it.
Okay, and it looks like that's all the questions that I saw on the Jamboard.
There's one more from Sunny. Yes, it was pulled, but it looks like it's been updated. The last time it was updated was 2021. So once again, I'm telling you, when you go to that website, please be wary of the links, the broken links on the right hand side. There's only a couple that work and that have the updated information, like currently updated information. So just be aware of that.
And it was pulled and then archived. So even before it was recently updated, it was archived too. Someone did save it. Any other questions? I'm happy to answer.
Yeah.
I think someone added the same question to the Jamboard, is weren't there issues with Bell's list and articles about it? It was the same question.
Yeah, and that's part of that pressure. So Jeffrey Bill had a lot of pressure because the companies did not want to be included on this list. They were very upset with them. Every predatory journal is going to say that they're not predatory and make their case. So, and then it kind of came down to, they were complaining to his bosses, and then so he was getting in trouble at work, and so it became a big hassle for him. And eventually, unfortunately, I think it just kind of wore him down.
Okay, so in the chat, I put if you have any resources, feel free to add them to the Jamboard or email Natalie or April, and then I put their emails below if you guys have any other resources. But I think that is all the questions. Do you guys see any more? I think we answered all the ones on the Jamboard and Zoom.
I think so.
Yeah, thank you, Natalie. I think we've answered them.
Yeah, of course. Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, any questions, just feel free to email us.
Yes.
All right, and thank you to our fantastic speakers, Natalie and April. Our next show and tell will be on January 25th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we hope to see you all there.
Thanks so much, you guys. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you, everyone.